Hello and welcome to Latika Takes, a podcast with me, Latika Bruch. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I've been on a little bit of a break, not necessarily from work, but just from the podcast over the summer. I hope you had a nice break for those of you in Europe. Today I'm in Stavanger in Norway, first trip to Norway, beautiful place. And I'm at the ONS Conference, which is a slight gear shift for me because this is an energy conference as opposed to a security or foreign affairs conference. Nevertheless, as I'm very often fond of saying, everything is security these days, and energy policy, as we have seen with the wars in Ukraine and Iran, is absolutely security policy. So I was very fortunate to have a half an hour session on stage at the ONS Conference with Christian Bruch. He's the CEO of Siemens Energy, the German company that is overseeing the energy transition in countless countries, from the United States to Syria to all sorts of places, and obviously across Europe. And we had a great chat. It turned out to be more geopolitical than I was initially anticipating. And I asked the team at ONS and Siemens if they could allow me to reproduce this discussion here because I thought it was so interesting and also very different from me to be able to nab a business figure and ask how geopolitics is shaping boardroom decisions. And I'm very, very grateful to the team at ONS and to Christian and his team for allowing me to reproduce this chat here. I hope you enjoy it. Good afternoon. Welcome to the final session here on this stage. My name's Latika Bruch. I am a journalist based in London for the Australian news publication The Nightly. And my guest today really doesn't need much of an introduction because even if you've spent 5 minutes here at ONS this year, you already know him. But please allow me to introduce him. He is Christian Bruch. He's the CEO of Siemens Energy. And not for long, can we say Siemens Energy? You're having a rebrand, is that right?
We have a rebrand coming up. There's a history around it, obviously. It's for us, obviously, a pretty big thing because we all love our heritage and it's always great to work for a company which has been brought up by a founder. But yes, towards the year end, we will start a rebranding process, which will take some time. And then we are called Terra.
And what message are you trying to send with this?
Well, first of all, the message which we don't want to give, let me start this way, is that we didn't like Siemens, or Siemens is not a great brand. Siemens is a super great brand. But obviously this was, when we spun off in 2020, one of the things we knew that was coming. Terra comes from omnis terra, right? I mean, the whole world. And obviously this is a couple of things in it. The one thing is we are operating in the whole world. We are in most of the countries of the world. Roughly 1/6, 1/5 of the world power production comes from our technologies. And we take a pride of being able to do business in countries which are just about to be built up, right? And that is one thing. And the other thing is obviously we try to get our arms around a world which needs also protection and needs balance and needs to find ways on how to get the different interests balanced out in a way where we can bring in technology, but also the ability to execute. And that was the logic in terms of Terra. But obviously now we have to fill it with perception, we have to fill it with life, and this will be a long journey, right? And everybody knows us as Siemens or Siemens Energy. So we are very well aware. We have a couple of years ahead of us, and we'll start the big activities towards the end of the year.
And will we see anything from you in a business application sense that is different in Terra compared to Siemens Energy?
No, it's not, literally not. I mean, it's really a rebranding exercise of the company. What you do see us doing, and we are under transformation since the start, actually, as a company. But what you will see us becoming is more electrical going forward. We do a lot of different things, a lot of different businesses, and we will continue to do a lot of different businesses. But the majority of our investments goes on this electricity growth, which is over proportional because you have two things. Energy is growing anyway, but the share of electricity is growing even more. And we are investing a lot of money into the expansion of our own capacities. But we're also investing a lot of money into innovation and development of new products on the portfolio, particularly if it comes to the electrical side. And this is why I would say, if any change, then you would see us becoming more and more electrical.
Mm-hmm. So the whole world is going through enormous shock at the moment. How do you place your role, Siemens Energy, in shepherding your clients through these shocks, keeping in faith with your own ambitions for decarbonisation, but also the new realities that have hit governments and that have hit consumers particularly hard with inflation?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's obviously also really, we are trying to be a good partner for our customers in accompanying them through this journey of on the one side getting access to energy, but at the same time also decarbonize their industry. Particularly at the current point in time, it's a lot about execution, much more than we talk about very often about ambitions and elements. At the moment, in a world where which gets more departed, where supply chains are cracking, where you have obviously to operate in areas under war threat, it's also about the ability to execute. So what we're trying to bring to our customers is a good understanding of we deliver what we say and we bring it to the ground, because at the end it's about the physical infrastructure which at the end gets there in time and in the quality. And this is why we take a lot of effort in terms of improving our way we operate. We always say the technology we have is a little bit the entry ticket in our markets. The way we try to convince customers is by the way we operate. How do we react on crisis? How do we react on unexpected situations? How can we circumvent the Strait of Hormuz if we have equipment down there? How do we keep operating while drones hitting our sites? And that is something which
and how are you managing each of
I mean,
those
I'm very
things?
proud on, I mean, first of all, I mean, we are normally, this is what I'm saying, we are in most of the countries of the world. We are in the Middle East, obviously relatively present. We have around 4,000 people in the Middle East. And I was also there on the sites when the drone attacks came. And what we're trying to do is, first of all, keeping our people safe, first priority. But obviously, coming with temporary things. How do you build temporary shelters in case drone attacks come, right? But I was very proud that we kept the operations running
The entire time.
The entire time. And I think we were one of the few companies who never left. We are building at the moment power plants in Kiev, right? And where we're trying to find new ways, and that is a different way on how to build power plants, on how to make sure that you can do it at this time, but also that it's a little bit more resilient against attacks. And that is a learning.
Which means what? How is it more resilient?
That's more about shelters. Do you put things in the ground which you normally would not put in the ground? What are mechanisms to at least survive the first wave of a drone attack? You cannot survive a rocket, but you can survive a drone. Yeah. And that is something where the design of buildings, of walls, of housings changes. And this is what we're seeing, obviously, also now happening in the Middle East. Customers come and say, look, what can you do to make that resilient if an attack comes? That's new, right? But this is where we're trying to be a good partner to our customers in terms of execution.
Do you have your own counter-drone defenses now in Iran? Is this something you're looking at doing?
We are looking at doing, and we are obviously engaged with drones anyway, because we are doing the surveillance of grid infrastructure. And that has nothing to do with war, right? Just in terms of maintenance, flying over it, doing AI recognition of the pictures and trying to figure out maintenance requirements. So we have drone capabilities anyway. Whether we are the best ones to afterwards have the interceptor drones is a different question, but we are looking at it.
Interesting. I mean, these are things you would never have thought when you took on this job.
No, I have to say, I said it before, in Germany you have the system, when I was young, you have the system, you either join the military or you join the social service. I joined the social service. I didn't went to the military, right? So it was something very far away from me. So I worked 2 years in a hospital, right? Instead of going to the military. And now my regular speaking partners are generals and military, and I'm part of the security conference, and I'm doing this because I do see the need, I do see the necessity to strengthen the military and the army and the defense capabilities. That's a very different world. And on the one side, it's scary. At the same time, I think it is an opportunity in the sense we can really contribute something. And at the end, the hope is that we can contribute something to a more secure world, to a world which has access to energy. And this is what we're trying to do, but it's different from what all I expected.
So let's go to the tension involved with this, because in Germany, obviously, huge amounts are now being poured into defence. We have seen security now take maybe a little bit of a greater priority over the trilemma that you deal with in energy, including, of course, affordability and supply. How do you see government? What is your advice to government, particularly in Germany, about finding the balance now between the path to decarbonisation, or, if it is a choice, having to spend that money on your defences?
First of all, I think it's not that easy of a choice, and I think it's not even a trilemma. I always say it's in the meantime, you have probably minimum 5 criteria.
Yeah.
So one is resilience, in terms of are you able to withstand attacks, whatever it is, sabotage or I don't know what. And the other thing is speed, access to electricity, because particularly in the world of AI, speed or access to energy plays a role, whether you have the supremacy on an AI model or not. So it's getting even more complex. And I think that is not an unrelated choice. We called it a trilemma because it's interconnected. I think there is not such a fundamental change that you would say you throw all sustainability ambitions out of the window just because you move to security or so.
But I hate this straw man, because it's not really about yes or no. Isn't it about the short-term pace of this journey?
The point is, and I think this is
as opposed to the long-term goal.
Yeah, no, I think this is what people sometimes, there is no short-term solution on energy. It always costs time. And what I'm trying to explain to governments particular is the grass does not grow faster just because you pull on it. So you cannot say, let's now change it in 2 years, everything. You need to make sure that you get into a relatively long-term consistent strategy to build up the supply chains, to build the factories and everything. And having this strategy executed over decades. Our energy system has been built over decades. You don't change it in 5 years just because you want it. And that is something where this balance between the different things is also not so easy to flip around in just because the boundary conditions change. And this is what I'm trying to explain to governments. We are on a trajectory which a lot of things, honestly, in Europe have been done well. And I think we sometimes are too negative.
Give me some examples of that. I think it is very important to actually say when Europe is doing well.
I mean, obviously
things.
we come we have a strong business also on the electrical side. Europe is the most interconnected region in the world. If it comes to the electricity grid or the energy grid, that's fantastic, right? And we have a very strong interconnected structure which allows us to operate very different sources of generation on it, from hydro in Norway, to solar in Spain, to nuclear in France.
Well, they're not in Germany anymore.
Yeah, well, but obviously there's other things in Germany. But anyway, right? But it is a great opportunity which sometimes is underestimated.
Yeah.
The mistake we make, I think, is first of all, we operate lots of different markets on that same system. While the system is interconnected, we don't operate it as an interconnected system. Why do we have 27 or 28 energy markets or 30 energy markets in that small region? Right? I don't get it, right? So you can make that much easier and actually create value of this. And the other thing is, we should not fool ourselves in Europe that we get cheaper energy costs compared to the US or the Middle East, right? Because
why?
Because the boundary conditions are different, right? You will always have cheaper renewable cost in Saudi than in north of Germany. Sorry to say, there's a difference in sunshine. And you will have different gas costs in the US with all the shale compared landed cost in Germany. Or
but
whatever.
Does that mean that's an acceptance that Europe cannot be competitive on manufacturing?
No, this is what I'm saying is you have to, the question is what is competitiveness? And if your belief is that competitiveness is cheap, then you're on the wrong track. You will not be cheaper in energy just because you want it. But you can build a competitive industry on a system which is resilient, reliable, where maybe the power cost is a bit higher, but you also have to make sure that the assets you build, for example, grid infrastructure, gets used to the maximum. At the moment in Europe, one mistake I think we do, we build infrastructure, relatively expensive, spend billions on it. The amount of electricity is not really increasing in Europe, which you should. You should electrify because you want to use these assets to, at the end, get it per unit cheaper. And this is, I think, where we have to get better. But also this discussion around energy cost and competitiveness in industry. One thing let me talk for my own country, Germany. The majority of the business is not energy intensive. High energy cost is absolutely a problem for energy intensive industries, chemicals, metals, or whatever. I get it, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the majority of the jobs. The majority of the jobs is companies like me, factories, fabrications, manufacturing. I'm not making a decision on energy cost if I place a factory. I make it on productivity, on availability of workforce, on bureaucracy in the country. That are the things. So that is what you as a country can relatively easy influence. The energy cost is a bit a given of the boundary conditions. And then you have to see what can I do with the conditions I have. And I think what Europe can build is a relatively diverse energy system across all the generation sources, which is better interconnected between the different countries than in all other parts of the world, which gives more reliability and more resilience. And please, 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 at one point in time, have an integrated energy market across Europe.
So I want to take you back to the tension we were discussing before about this need for Europe to rearm at the same time as progress decarbonisation. We've seen perhaps, whether it's accurate or not, but a general acceptance in the public that maybe they're willing to pull back on the pace of carbon mitigation measures in exchange for a more affordable lifestyle because of the inflation shocks. Do you see this reflected at all? Do you think that the pace of decarbonisations for you is slower as a result of war in Ukraine and the Strait of Hormuz?
First of all, I would say if you don't have security and if you don't have access to electricity or energy, you have nothing, right? And this is why obviously priority is making sure that you have a resilient system. But what I'm not seeing is like a deliberate move away from the idea and logic of sustainability. What I'm seeing is a more realistic discussion on how systems going to evolve. I would also have said, I mean, we are in all the areas. We are in the renewables, we make green hydrogen, we do gas turbines. So I believe we are not biased on the source of energy. But I think there were some of the discussions over the last years which were also unrealistic in the speed in terms of how to convert the system. And people now take obviously cost into account. And what we have to achieve with the energy transition is also that competitiveness does not get a victim of the energy transition. I mean, it is something which is in the equation because you need industry, you need obviously to develop. But I'm not, you know, I get a lot of questions to say, do people now throw sustainability out of the window? I'm not seeing this, also not from the investor side. I mean, if I talk to my investors or investors into project, ESG and sustainability absolutely plays a role.
But do you see them accommodating a longer use of fossil fuels
Absolutely.
than they might otherwise?
No, absolutely. You hear that, right? And you hear it on gas. I mean, Germany is just ahead of a big auction on the gas side. What gives me a super big concern at the moment is that, I mean, we are also in offshore wind. Offshore wind gets pulled back a bit, which is not good. And I hear people starting to talk about coal. Again, longer use of coal.
Fatih Birol raised this yesterday in the opening
Which
session.
is obviously crazy. I mean, don't talk about CO2 if you continue to burn coal, right? And in the world electricity system, you have 25 to 30% of the electricity generation globally still is coal. That's the easiest way to save CO2, right? I mean, don't talk about CO2 capture as long as you burn coal left, right, and center. And that is something which we really have to avoid, that people going back to coal. That is really something by any means has to happen. But obviously with all the constraints, people starting to discuss it. And this is where we have to see as an industry on how do we avoid of going on this track.
So you're very hardline on this?
Yes.
No more acceptance of coal?
Yeah, when I joined the company, one of the first action was to get out of the coal business. So we closed our coal business down while it was profitable. What we said, we're not, because, you know, my logic is my company and also my employees expect this, I think, from us and from me. We are trying to find solutions which creates electricity and energy for the people at a lower CO2 content. This does not mean that we will not touch fossil fuels. We do gas. But we try to get the CO2 intensity continuously down every year. And this is a solution we try to promote, and coal doesn't belong to that.
So how did you interpret what the IEA boss said yesterday? He said to be accurate that coal would have a boost as a result of the geopolitical
Well,
climate?
I think it was unfortunately a statement of the facts, right? And particular what you see happening at the moment is that obviously a lot of countries, and I think he made this statement in relation also to Asia Pacific,
Yes.
certain countries really are forced into coal. One thing is by the prices of the fuel. The other thing is also by the prices of the equipment. If you see a lot of the projects in Asia, which were actually targeting to use, for example, gas or alternative gases, are moving back to coal simply because both things got so expensive, because all the gas turbines move into the AI space, and a lot of this moves to the US and much higher prices, and a lot of countries cannot afford it anymore. You see the same in Africa, right? It gets unaffordable in certain areas, and that drives people either to stay in coal or to go back to coal, and that is something we as a energy world should not accept without trying to find mitigations to that.
So in the United States, you hear the president there talk about beautiful, clean coal. So that's an example of one of these not poorer jurisdictions. They do have choices. Looking at this, is it even realistic to think that your argument will prevail when you have the United States leading on the other way?
I think in the United States, we have to see is also what is said publicly and what is done. I mean, if you look on Trump 1, this was a time when the most renewables were added to the system. You see onshore wind coming back. I mean, you see the stop on offshore very clearly. And they have obviously a gas boom at the moment. There are no other country in the world adds as much gas capacity in the moment like the US. So you have to see that in balance. And honestly, I strongly believe at the end it's more pragmatism and logic what prevails, and not statements what you want or believe or so. So I think there's I would still be quite optimistic, is maybe the wrong word, but positive on the way, and they find a decent way to get through the different system, and it will be a balanced system between renewables, gas, nuclear, and the question will be how long they will keep on operating the coal. But I think it's less dependent on a statement of the president.
Interesting. So wind was obviously the cause of your horror year at Siemens Energy. I was just reading it's profitable for you this last quarter.
Well, it's break even. So it's now the first quarter profitability after 22 quarters. And that was really a hell of a journey, I have to say, because this was a year 23 when we lost more than 4 billion euros in the wind business, which shook up the whole company when it was not always clear can we balance it out with the other businesses. And that was a hard learning also from leading the company perspective. The team has done a fantastic job to turn it around, I really have to say. I'm very proud on our wind team. Now the way forward, the key thing is, can we make it a nice, profitable, sustainable business?
And can you?
The challenge is not so much anymore from our organization side. I think we have done our homework. The challenge is that a lot of the markets are shaky. We are market leader in offshore wind, and offshore wind is at the moment everywhere delayed. I think offshore wind is a necessary source of electricity if we want to build a sustainable energy system.
And what's driving the delays?
The delays, first of all, you have to keep in mind that the interest rates compared to 4 or 5 years ago have risen up.
Yep.
And you have a very capital-intensive power source. So if you double your interest rates, most of the business cases don't fly. So if you have done an auction under different interest rates assumptions, it's very difficult to make the business case. So this is why a lot of people go back and say, I need a different pricing.
So as a CEO, you're sitting there watching interest rate rises with even more concern.
Absolutely. I mean, on the renewable side, I mean, all the renewables have obviously, because you don't have the fuel, the capital plays a bigger role in the business case. That's obviously a relatively straightforward logic. And this is why you have to watch that very carefully. So that is one big thing which changed. And the other thing is obviously, what do people believe in 2035 the power price is going to be? And if because if you do offshore wind, you normally do big bets, right? You invest billions, and then you're betting on that's my power price. And this is why the contract for differences, so giving the customers a certain price level, are so important. But depending on the level of that, people are willing to commit or not willing to commit. And at the moment, I think this is in a situation where people are not sure how much gigawatts they really need. The problem is it hits an industry which is just under build up. And if they would run out of projects and we would have a break for like 2 or 3 or 4 years, will the industry still be available in Europe 5 years later? I don't think so. And that would be a pity, because today this is a European-driven industry, really with good players, not just us, other players as well. So once we lose it, we lost another big technology, and that would be a concern.
Do you think there's a case there for greater government subsidy in the interim then?
I wouldn't call it subsidy. It's really about getting this insurance back on this. This is what contracts for difference mean in terms of that is what the power price is going to be. That is what governments need to do. Yes, absolutely. And then obviously investing and everything is really up to the project developers and or companies like ours.
Can I take you back to the geopolitics? So I think in the news media we wake up every day and that's what the president has said today. Is this happening in your boardroom, given the magnitude of some of his decisions, particularly obviously Iran?
Sure. No, I mean, and obviously we are a very political, energy is always a political business.
Absolutely.
I spend a lot of time with government leaders and exchanging. I spend a lot of time in the US. I'm also a lot at DC. Absolutely. And obviously we are a business which is based on global supply chains where you continuously ship in and out. And if the president does a new regulation on tariffs, it impacts us. At the same time, we have the benefit of being, I think, a wanted company in the US. We are investing at the moment more than $1 billion in the US in our factories because we're obviously critical infrastructure and the US needs our products. So that's good.
And this is key language to the Trump administration.
Absolutely. No, and what I did learn with the Trump administration, they're very approachable. That's very positive, and they're pragmatic.
Yeah.
And if you say, look, this is what I do, this is what I need, can we do it? And then it's relatively fast, yes or no. So what we offer always in the countries is actually business deals, and that works well with the Trump administration. I cannot comment on political decisions or whatever, but in that regard, the US has been for us a successful market in the last 12 to 18 months. What is obviously a big concern for us is, we are affected by global supply chains. As I said, Middle East is important for us. South China Sea is important for us. We are everywhere. And then when it's difficult to judge on how these conflicts going to evolve, it impacts us, sure.
So we're at nearly time. The theme of this ONS this year is courage. And whether this is in the current role you have or any role you've had, what was the moment you had to really summon courage to make that decision in your business life?
As you said, there's probably, let's say, lots of examples. One example you brought up in terms of when the company was going through a crisis time. Because
your sleepless year.
My sleepless year, exactly, when it was not, because you're dependent on externals. You don't have the fate completely in your own hand. It was really, we are one of the biggest guarantee providers, or as a give guarantees out to customers in Europe. So we normally have a guarantee book of 20 to 30 billion. And then when all of a sudden the bank tells you, not sure whether we can stand behind it, then your business model cracks. And that was obviously where we had to make decisions on structure differently. I mean, I did it with the German government, which was not an easy thing to do because it also came with strings attached, which were pretty painful. And that was obviously not an easy decision in the sense of how to take the company forward and keeping the people in the company confident. And this was a lot about communication.
And what drove your courage?
The people. I think we have a fantastic team at Siemens Energy. I'm super proud of working in a team which is energetic, which stands in for each other. And I was 100% convinced with this team we cannot lose. And I knew that obviously we have great products. It's a good market. It's something we have to live through, right? But the momentum which you had in the team was just amazing.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more final question on the same theme. You're sitting in front of governments all the time. If you could say to them, if you just had the courage to do this one thing, what would it be?
Execute. I think we are underestimating the relevance of time in all of this. And, we have so many debates of what could be done right or wrong. Man, implement certain things. Do it.
Why do you think they don't?
Honestly, I'm first of all, it's not about the governments and whether it's business or so forth. I think in our world today, I think the playground also for governments is actually, particularly in the democracy, is pretty small, right? With media, with everything what you're doing is criticized, everybody jumps on it. I think we have to open up the envelope or the playground in terms of acting, and have to be also acceptant to failure sometimes, and not jump and criticize on each and everything what you're trying to do. It's damn complex. And I don't envy anybody of the politicians of having to make such decisions. It's a damn hard job. But I think we also have to learn as a society more openness to change, and let's try things out to move something, because the biggest risk in our time is hesitation. And we have to get behind that.
Christian Bruch, thank you very much for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to Latika Takes with me, Latika Bruch. You can find my work at latikambruch.com and this podcast where you find all your podcasts. See you next time.